Priority 1 message from Starfleet coming in on secured channel.
You are listening to the TrekRanks Podcast, a member of the Tricorder Transmissions Podcast Network. This is episode 15, featuring the top 5 episodes you grew to love. Welcome, Star Trek fans. I am Jim Moorhouse, and I am the host of the TrekRanks Podcast. And tonight, we have a very cool, very unique topic for you, and I think it's going to lead to a pretty revealing discussion and maybe just some deep cut selections. And you already know this, but at the TrekRanks Podcast, we love deep cut picks. So tonight's topic is our top 5 episodes that you grew to love. And by that, what we mean is basically it's the episodes that when you first watched them, you didn't really connect with them. You didn't like them. Maybe you even hated it. Not that we hate any Star Trek. I don't think that's possible. But then after a certain amount of time, you grew to really respect it and love it, and made it part of your rewatches and an episode that you actually like. So I think it's going to be a really insightful, interesting topic. And to make it even more fun, we have the return of the founder of the Tricorder Transmissions Podcast Network, Mr. Jeff Hulit, back with us tonight to take part. Jeff, it's been a few weeks. It's good to have you back.
It is so good to be back, Jim. I felt so bad missing the last few episodes. We've been going kind of crazy with Disco Trek, our Discovery podcast here on Tricorder Transmissions. It's been a lot of work to get that out. So unfortunately, some scheduling conflicts, and I did go on vacation, which definitely put an impediment in our getting together for these. But I'm so glad to be back here, and I'm going to just put this out here right now. You don't necessarily have to do this, but I would be completely honored if your number 1 pick was the entire animated series.
You had to go there. There. That's not going to happen tonight, ladies and gentlemen.
Oh, man, I'm heartbroken.
Okay, also joining us for this cool topic, 2 fantastic Trekkies. First up, making his second appearance on the TrekRanks Podcast, is Adam Hunault. Hunault? I can never get it right, buddy. He was with us for our awesome show on the top 5 high-concept Voyager episodes. Adam, welcome back, buddy. How do you say it?
It's Uno, but, close enough. And,
okay, that's
outdoor joy to you.
All right, and I'm super excited to also welcome our second guest tonight, who's been on my short list since we started this show. She's a former host of To the Journey, a Voyager podcast on Trek FM, and is now part of the Nerd Party Network, where she co-hosts Punch It with my old buddy Tristan Rydell. She's Charlynn Schmiedt. I can't get any names right today, and she is awesome.
You're awesome too.
Welcome to the TrekRanks Podcast.
Oh, thank you for having me. This will be so much fun.
Yes, this topic is going to be super cool. All right. So, Char, we always like to start with Trek origin stories, and I want to hear yours. So how did you get into Star Trek?
Okay, well, it started way back when I was 6 years old. TNG was right on the horizon, and some station that came out of Denver, because I grew up in Wyoming, was rerunning the original series sort of as like a lead-in to Star Trek The Next Generation's premiere. My dad watched the heck out of that, and I was just kind of hanging out with my dad, doing whatever he was doing, and I thought it was so cool that these people were out in space, and that is how I started watching Star Trek. Of course, at 6 years old, I didn't fully understand what was going on, but it was enough to keep me going. And then as the years have gone by, I've stuck with it. And it's so much fun going back now on episodes that I may have not watched in 20 years and getting a whole new experience out of them. So thanks, Dad, for getting me into Star Trek.
There's no better way. That is awesome. And have you seen it all? What's your completest ratio?
Oh, without a doubt. I had to have seen everything at least once, but there's definitely gaps in my knowledge just because it's been a long time since I've watched sometimes whole seasons of series. Like right now, I've got to confess, DS9 is a little faded in my memory. I've got to go back. Certain parts of TNG, same deal. I've maybe not watched them since 1991, but they're in there somewhere.
Of course, for all of us. All right, so Adam, now we've heard your origin story here on TrekRanks.
Yes, glorious. It was glorious.
So I love asking people my favorite question, and I think it just puts a little light on just kind of how you view Trek. So what is your favorite Star Trek series? If you had to pick one today.
If I had to pick one today, it would be Star Trek the original series is my favorite series. If I had to pick one tomorrow, I have no idea what I would say. I usually just bounce back and forth between TOS and TNG. So not very interesting. I'm not really going to surprise anybody with those choices. But yeah, I like those. I'm a traditionalist.
Well, no wrong answers, which leads us to our quick Trek Ranks reset.
Infinite diversity.
In infinite combinations.
That's right, Vulcan Master. Our Trek Ranks mantra is no wrong answer. So just a reminder here that Trek Ranks, this show is all about the reasons we love Star Trek. We're not here to nitpick, so you're not going to hear any of that today. And I know some people, like to act like rankings or lists are beneath them, but what we do is we use ranks as our starting point for just an awesome conversation about Trek and about some episodes or elements of Trek that maybe you haven't thought of in a while. So nothing would make me happier than if someone listening right now ends up going back to watch some old episodes because of this conversation that we're about to have. So we love it all here. We love TOS to TNG, straight through to Enterprise and the Kelvin timeline, and now Discovery as well. It's all fair game here on the Trek Ranks podcast.
Black alert. Black alert. Black alert. Black alert.
All right, so with that black alert in mind, I do want to take a quick moment and remind everyone that Discovery is now in play for selection at any time on Trek Ranks. So that means potential Discovery spoilers are in play, just in case you haven't watched it yet. I don't think it's going to happen too often where we have Discovery in play, but the last couple of weeks it has been for sure. And I just want to also make it clear that since we have new Trek, I like to set our timeline of where we are in Trek while we're making these picks. So if you're listening to this down the road, we are current as of Season 1, Episode 8 of Discovery. It's so great that we have Star Trek back on TV. So, okay, and as a reminder, last thing, we use episodes as our shorthand, but obviously that accounts for the 13 films as well. Shar, Adam, Jeff, does all that make sense? You guys all on board?
Got it.
Roger.
All right, so before we get started, let's have Lieutenant Uhura open up a channel so we can let everyone know how you can contact us.
Hailing frequencies are open.
All right, so you can check us out on the World Wide Web at TrekRanks.com and at the TricorderTransmissions.com. And if you'd like to leave us a message with your own picks, you can do that at 609-512-LLAP. That's 609-512-5527. And I'll give you that number again at the end of the show. I'm sure we also have a Facebook. Jeff, do we have a Facebook? Where can people get us on Facebook?
Sure, yeah. Facebook.com/the Tricorder Transmissions.
That makes sense. I don't really do Facebook. Someday.
Who does?
It's a goal.
Oh, you're not missing much.
That's what everyone keeps saying. All right. And for those of you enjoying all of our shows here on the Tricorder Transmissions Podcast Network, including Shore Leave, the amazing Disco Trek podcast with Heather Barker, and our new Politreks. So if you're interested in those, you can maybe become a Patreon of our shows, which you can do at patreon.com/the Tricorder Transmissions. And we appreciate the support. All right. And finally, you can reach me. I almost forgot about me on Twitter at TrekRanks and also at Enterprise Extra. So hopefully we'll hear from you because this show is definitely better when we're hearing from you. Okay. Let's wrap it up. Adam, how can people get a hold of you?
You can find me on Twitter. I'm at Adam Hunault. That's ADAMHUNAULT.
All right. And how about you, Shar? How can people get a hold of you?
You can find me on Twitter, and my handle is @OhTheProfanity.
Nice.
I love that awesome Twitter handle.
Oh, I think
It's
I
so
follow
great.
you. I didn't realize it was you, though.
Oh, really? Oh, nice. Well, I'll have to
All
follow
right,
you
there
back
you
if
go.
I'm not following you already.
And Jeff, how about yourself? What's your personal Twitter for everybody?
Yeah, on Twitter, I am Warp Factor Jeff.
Another great Star Trek Twitter handle.
That is.
No pressure, Adam. No pressure. Mr. Professional. All right. So normally at this time we would fire up our level 1 diagnostic, but we don't really need that for this topic. So instead, we are jumping right into our Prime Directive.
I do not concur with your captain's decision.
She's following our Prime Directive.
Define Prime Directive.
Okay, so Adam, Shar, and Jeff, even though the Prime Directive is a little bit obvious for this topic, it's the episodes that we grew to love. It kind of says it all. One of the things I want to ask you guys about is you talk about your criteria and how you narrow down your picks is about, I want to hear how challenging it was for you on this topic. Did you have a long list, a lot of episodes, or was it a pretty confined list? I'm kind of curious about that. So Shar, how about you? What's your criteria that you put into looking to narrow down your list, and how long was it?
My list criteria is basically episodes that maybe I either was really meh on, or was like, just, it's okay. It's good. It's all right. But then over time, completely learned to appreciate it in a different way, or appreciate it more somehow. And then as we go through our picks, I'll explain how that works with each one. As for the length of my list, I considered a lot, but a lot of them got scratched really early on. And so then I really just wanted a nice, solid core. And I tried to pick one from each series, minus Discovery and minus the animated series.
Always a good challenge when you try to be inclusive on TrekRanks. So I like that. All right. How about you, Adam? What was your breakdown?
Well, I'm completely the opposite from Shar. You told me what the topic was, and I had my list in about 5 minutes. I didn't consider very many things at all. I knew exactly what it was going to be. Actually, I didn't know exactly what it was going to be because there were 6 on the list, and figuring out which one was going to get removed, that was a struggle. I do have one thing in common with Shar, though. I have one from every series on the list, and that was a complete accident. I didn't realize it until afterward.
All right. Spoiler alert. We got that to look forward to. How about you, Jeff? How did your breakdown go?
Yeah, well, my time constraint really influenced the amount of time I could spend on my list. So my list is pretty much the 5 things that came to my mind first. It's been a pretty crazy week for me, so I've been throwing my list together between last night and today. So I didn't wind up having a super long list. These are the 5 Trek I'm saying the word episodes, but I may have some surprise picks in there. So these are the 5 that came to my mind first, and I just went with them. Or other things that I was met on first and grew to love over time.
Okay, so this is going to be an interesting, I think, some episodes that we haven't really talked about too much on Trek. So listen, on my end, I mean, it's no secret I'm a huge Trekkie, and some might even say a Trek apologist, and I wouldn't really fault them for that because I love it all. So, needless to say, my list was pretty short. There's not too many that I really disliked from the get-go. And spoiler alert, some of the episodes that I don't like from the get-go, I still don't like. So I haven't grown to love Star Trek V. Sorry, Jeff, or Code of Honor, or Prophet and Lace. So you're not going to hear any of those. I still don't like those.
Yeah, those did not make my list at all because, I still don't appreciate them and never will, probably.
See,
exactly.
I really liked Star Trek V at the get-go when I was, 6 years old, I think. 7.
So the level of humor was right on par with.
Yeah, it was very appropriate for that age.
Can I hang up now? By the way, is it okay?
FYI, Jeff loves Star Trek V. I love this. Okay, so
it takes all kinds.
It does.
Exactly. All right. Well, I feel like this episode is going to be fun because I think, like I said, there's a really good chance we're going to talk about a bunch of episodes that maybe some people can't stand, and that's great. So, all right, let's introduce our friend Third Romoticon to help us get through the order of things.
I am a Jem'Hadar. He is a Vorta. It is the order of things.
Yes, it is, Third Romoticon, and we are ready to jump in to tonight's topic. And as we go through the order of things, there's just a quick reminder for everyone on how we do that. First, each of us will reveal the name of our episode selection at the or maybe we'll start with our 5-word summary and a hashtag, but we'll reveal those elements, and then we'll talk briefly about the episode and why you grew to love it. And at the end, we'll ask for a few secondary system selections for the picks that maybe just missed our list. So I think that's going to be a shorter round than normal. Normally, we're just packed with secondary systems. Everybody wants to list everything they couldn't fit on their list. So, all right, Adam, let's start with you. What's your number 5 pick for episodes you grew to love?
Okay, well, my number 5 pick, the 5-word summary and hashtag are, "You've just rewritten our history." Hashtag a footnote at best. It's from Enterprise, Season 2, Episode 2, Carbon Creek.
Wow. So this show's already awesome. All right. Let's hear this.
So, Season 2 of Enterprise was a pretty dark time for me as a Trekkie, I would say. I had such high hopes going into the show, and, the week before this episode aired, I watched cringing as Scott Bakula delivered his speech about watching a gazelle get born. And my impression was that the entire second season of Enterprise was one of the weaker moments of Star Trek, and I had written the entire thing off. I happened to go back not too long ago and watch this episode, and I just fell in love with it. It's almost not an episode of Enterprise, which is not to say anything bad about Enterprise, but it just happens to be just sort of an episode of the Star Trek universe with a framing story of a couple of Enterprise characters to get it going. And I just loved seeing the Vulcans fish out of water in the 1950s. I loved all the supporting characters. Just thoroughly a great episode.
No doubt. But it's so interesting to hear that you didn't connect with it first time, maybe because of the whole second season of Enterprise, which I understand your feelings on that. What do you guys think? Any comments on Carbon Creek, Shar?
I like this episode a lot. I know that some people don't like the time travel aspect to it and you're rewriting history, as you quoted. I think it's fun. I enjoy the romp. I like seeing Vulcans in the 1950s feeling completely out of place, as they should be. It's a worthy 45 minutes of entertainment for me.
Yep, I agree. I'm a sucker for time travel. It's hard for me to not like a time travel episode. So I'm on board with that. I never disliked it in the first place, but I totally get why people may have disliked it. But I wasn't one of them.
Well, I think there might be a bit of a theme to the episodes on my list, that there was something going on with me at the time that prevented me from liking it. And this is the first example, but you might see that.
All right.
Okay.
This is going to be an interesting introspection of Adam Hunault's personal life.
Yeah,
I like it.
I'm sure everyone will be riveted.
Okay. All right, Shar. Yeah, I can't wait. Shar, what is your number 5 pick?
Okay, my number 5, the 5-word summary is "The near future's gonna suck. Hashtag Tasmania." I'm talking about DS9's past tense 1 and 2. Now, I know that this is a big favorite for a lot of people, but you know what? The first time I watched it, I was just like, yeah, that was all right. That was kind of fun. Like, I like the hippies. Okay. I was 13 when this first aired, so that was my favorite part because that was downright hilarious. But revisiting this episode and doing so many times since made me really appreciate what they were doing with this episode. And the closer that we get to 2024, the more I've thought, wow, they're kind of nailing this, sadly. And so my appreciation has just exponentially increased for this 2-parter.
That is fascinating. Did not expect to hear past tense, but I get it. If you're younger and you're not connecting with it, and yes, now we just talked about this on last week's show, that how prescient that episode is. Incredible.
Oh, it's so good. Mm-hmm.
Incredible. And it's literally in my top 20 on my all-time DS9 ranks. It's phenomenal. What do you guys think?
I love this one. I think I was probably around the same age as Shar when it came out. I remember videotaping it and watching the videotape of the first part several times in that week because I was just so thirsty for the conclusion. It felt, I said earlier I'm more of a TNG and TOS fan, and this felt like a TNG episode to me, and it was when TNG had just gone off the air, and it felt like they were only doing it on DS9 for that reason, and that was very welcome for me to see. To see DS9 expanding into that void that TNG had left, and this was during the 6 months when DS9 was the only show on.
That's true. Right. Oh, and you know what else I did not like about this episode at first was it was very heavy on the technobabble.
Yes, that's probably why I loved it. I love me some good good technobabble. It's funny. I actually said last week that this is the episode when I watched it when I was watching it the first time. I was like, I think DS9 might be my favorite Star Trek because I was so riveted. I loved it. So
that's enough.
Well, look who we've got here. Way to show initiative, new boy. Take him and throw him back there along with the rest of our guests.
What the hell do you think you're doing?
I think I am making a political statement. Maybe if we're lucky, I might even be able to stage a nice little photo op. I hope that meets with your approval.
Do as he says.
Well, all right. I've waited a long time for this. And I know I won't be disappointed. Ain't that right, new boy?
The name is Bell. Gabriel Bell.
this is why we do Trek Ranks. That's so great. All right, Jeff, what is your number 5 episode you grew to love?
All right. So 5 words. Vulcans seemed boring at first. Hashtag Trek is better with friends. It's Enterprise Season 4, Episode 8, Awakening.
Oh,
I absolutely hated this episode until I met Jim at Star Trek Las Vegas and found out he was in it, and I instantly loved it. No, I'm actually kidding. That's not my pick. Not my pick. I'm just kidding. Jim knows I always have to throw a joke pick in there somewhere.
I knew it was as soon as I hit it.
He sees it coming.
Because I'm cutting your mic off right now.
Oh, come on.
Hey, at least you grew to love it. All right. What's your real
number 5? Okay, my real number 5. So 5 words. Still not a Ferengi fan. Hashtag, how are they all the same age? TNG Season 6, Episode 7, Rascals.
Oh, this is what I'm talking about. So now you like it.
I do. So I have to admit, when I first saw this episode, I was there watching it as it aired, and I thought this was pretty bad. The concept itself seemed really far-fetched and unbelievable, ridiculous. All of those, Picard, Ro, Keiko, and Guinan, all reverting to the same age, despite that they were all different ages when they started. Come on, man. A handful of rogue idiot Ferengi being able to take over the Federation flagship. Come on. It just
but now you love it. So why is that? That's crazy.
I do. And you know what? And it's hard to say what exactly changed, but I'm attribute it to the fact that now I'm quite a bit older than I was when this episode came out, and I have a very different perspective on Trek in general, especially after I've been podcasting about it for 4.5 years. I've started to look at Trek a lot differently than I did, when I was a younger person. And I started to appreciate the child actors here. I feel like they all do a much better job than I initially felt they did, imitating their adult counterparts, comparing it to something like And the Children Shall Lead. The number one dad scene is so awkward, but it's so cute. I don't know. It's endearing to me now. And I can't look at it the same way as I used to. I don't know. I can't really put my finger completely on why it changed, but now when I watch it back, I'm flipping channels. It's on the BBC. I leave it on, and I like it now.
I get it. I think some of my picks are similar to this one in terms of
I've softened. I think it's age.
Softened, yeah, exactly.
I think it's age. I've softened on my harshness on Trek.
Shar, Adam, where did you guys stand when you first saw Rascals?
Well, first watching it, I was the same age as when they became 12-year-old kids, so I thought that was fantastic. That was great. I thought, though, that maybe they were a little too childish. I mean, they're coloring, they're jumping on beds. As a 12-year-old, those days were behind me already. So I thought, wow, am I doing something wrong or are they? But you know what, Jeff, for the very reasons you described why you love it more and more is the reason why it's kind of gone downhill for me.
Oh,
interesting.
Yeah,
nice
especially
contrast.
the Ferengi taking over the flagship of the Federation.
Worst.
These guys are idiots.
It's the worst.
Exactly. Well, that's so. The kid actors, though, are fantastic. I enjoy them, but the Ferengi, I just cringe whenever they're on screen.
I got you.
Yeah, Adam, any quick Rascals comments?
Riker and Worf were definitely having a bad day that day. But I was 10, I guess, when it came out, and I was an actor in theater productions in my city, and this just, gave me hope that I too could be on Star Trek one day. So I enjoyed it. I enjoyed. I happen to remember the episode after it was Fistful of Datas, and I really enjoyed that one too. But definitely on the lighter side. And I just want to say also that she doesn't get a lot of credit, but the child actor playing Ro especially is excellent. She just has...
totally.
She has Michelle Forbes mannerisms down, like the way she turns her head to the side when she doesn't want to deal with something. Very good.
They're all excellent.
So what the hell am I supposed to do now?
You're not supposed to do anything. That's what relieved of duty means.
Well, I should be doing something instead of just standing around waiting for them to find a cure.
You're right. Let's go play.
What?
I haven't been young for a long time, and I intend to enjoy every minute of it.
Fine, enjoy yourself.
What are you gonna do? Go back to your room and pout?
I am not 12 years old. If I want to go to my quarters and contemplate my situation, that does not mean that I am pouting.
Okay.
All right, so my number 5 pick, I'm going to start off with a bang. And my 5 words on a hashtag. Are you one, Herbert? Hashtag, I am not Herbert. We reach, brother.
Oh my God.
It is the way to eat it. Season 3 of TrekRanks. Hey, brother. So let me just say this is also the record holder for longest amount of time it took me to grow to love it.
Oh, I love it.
And Jeff, if I'm being honest, I got to say, my friend and co-host, it's because of you that I've turned around on this episode. It just kind of hit me in the last year.
It was one of my comfort foods.
I know. I was rewatching it after that. I actually told you on the episode I'm gonna go watch it, and it's pretty awesome. It's actually very well done. Even with the space hippies taking over the ship, I'm telling you, the story structure is super strong. You've got this, Tongo Rad. They can't really do anything because he's the son of a important diplomat, and the crew having to treat him nice. And then when they take over the ship, it's not just like on a whim. They actually have a plan, and they go to all the different important areas of the ship and slowly kind of integrate themselves and infiltrate into these. So it just kind of hit me that this is actually a really good episode. And the number one reason is because Charles Napier's performance as Adam. He's amazing. The music's amazing. Spock is amazing. And I can actually say that I really like the Way to Eden now. And I have always been down on it. So there you go. Way to Eden.
I love it, man. That is beautiful.
I figured you would.
I'm right now I'm trying to learn how to play a bicycle tire as an instrument.
Yes. Shar, you must have watched this later in life, right?
Well, early and later.
Yeah, okay.
Like I was saying, when my dad was watching reruns, I'm sure I watched this. I don't recall watching it way back then, but of course I've watched it since. I have loved that you made this pick.
I know. You can still hate it. I get it. I get why people...
I don't hate it. I mean, it's such a relic of its time. I mean, space hippies, that's fantastic. It could have only come out of the 1960s. I don't hate it. You gave some really good reasons why to love it. And you know what? Sometimes it's fun to take some of these more infamous episodes of Star Trek, just sit back, unplug your brain, and watch it and enjoy it. I mean, I will tell you that I will watch Threshold or Spock's Brain and have a very good time.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
If this is your version of that, more power to you, buddy. I'm with you.
It kind of is, as are probably the rest of my next pick. So, all right.
Well, if they're as good as this, we're in for a treat.
Yeah, same here on this one. I will appreciate this one on just the unintentional camp level, but
yes.
As far as it being a very good episode, I'm not there yet, Jim.
Okay, you'll
go
Jim,
let's not forget to mention the social commentary presented in this episode really let us know what the writers were thinking about the hippie movement. The fact that this cult leader led them all to a place that would literally kill them just by stepping on it. So, what was the message they were trying to send with this episode?
Don't join a cult.
Get in line. Really. Get in line, hippie.
This was being made in Los Angeles, pretty much contemporary to the Manson murders. So I'm not surprised they were a little down on the cult.
Yeah.
Yeah, that got dark quick. Okay, let's move to round 4. Adam, what's your number 4 pick?
Okay, well, my number 4 pick just got mentioned in passing. My 5 words are Spock has lost his mind. Hashtag
nice.
Brain.
Yay!
Hashtag brain and brain. What is brain?
Oh, I love it.
It's Star Trek TOS, Season 3, Episode 6, Spock's Brain. This, there's a very specific reason why I came to love this. This was actually one of the first episodes of Star Trek that I saw, but I remembered very little about it. Just Leonard Nimoy walking around like Frankenstein's monster. When I finally did see it in its entirety later on, I was not impressed with it at all. Fast forward about 10 years, I decided to have a party with a group of friends of mine, and we were going to do a Star Trek drinking game. And I had all of the rules spelled out about when you would drink, and we were going to watch some quote unquote bad episodes. So we watched Way to Eden and Cat's Paw, and we watched this. And the rules, we watched this one first, and the rules were all very complicated, like when Chekhov does this, and there were some people there who didn't know Star Trek that well. So I called an audible, and I said, as the sports fans say, and I said, okay, forget all those rules. We're just going to drink anytime that somebody says the word brain.
Oh, no.
And let me tell you,
dangerous.
We were sipping, and if anyone tries this at home, please just sip your beer. Don't pound shots or anything. But it became hilarious very, very quickly. It's one of my favorite experiences watching Star Trek. It became so funny because the word brain itself, when you take it out of context, is a really funny word to listen to. And when you're listening for it specifically, it just gets a different dimension. And we were laughing so hard that we couldn't drink fast enough for the number of times that they said brain. And ever since then, I have loved that episode. I rewatched it in order to get ready for this podcast, and I did the drinking game, and it's still pretty fun.
Still dangerous.
Yeah, dangerous though, yes.
Classic.
I kind of want to do this drinking game now.
It's so simple, and yet it's just perfect in its simplicity.
I was wondering if this episode was going to come up. I thought it might, and that is fantastic, because it's definitely not reputation bad. It's got that camp element that makes it. There's a lot of good things in this episode, even though it's a bit nonsensical, to say the least.
It's definitely not good. It's just fun to watch.
Exactly, and that's sometimes half the battle. All right, Char, what's your number 4 pick?
My number 4 pick, 5-word summary, is Janeway's ancestors were real people. Hashtag no cold beer. And that is 11:59. So when this first aired, I was starting to get pretty cool on Voyager. Even as much as I love it, I realized it was not doing terribly great. I was not getting excited every week like I used to when it first started. And I just thought, da-da-da-da-da-da-da. And a lot of people, I'm sure, are very surprised if they know me at all. They know Janeway's my homegirl. I love her to death. She is my captain. And so to kind of bash a little bit on a story that's all about Janeway's ancestors, you're thinking, what the heck are you smoking, Char? But the truth is I just thought it was very mediocre. It was not terribly entertaining. I thought it moved slow. But over time, this episode has become a holiday tradition.
Yay!
Because it started airing around Christmas time. And so pretty much every year since, I make sure I break out 11:59 at least once around New Year's Eve. Just because. And you know what? I love the fact that the message of this episode is, we kind of glorify people with rose-colored glasses in the past because we don't know how they really were. Everything gets exaggerated over time. That's a really good lesson to remember, Aunt Martha or no. And so I've really learned to appreciate this episode and enjoy it.
I love that pick. It's also a holiday tradition for me. I wouldn't say I love it, but I'm kind of in the same area where it's definitely gotten better over the years. It's still, but how about you guys, Adam, Jeff? Any comments?
I did not like it the first time I saw it, but I believe part of it was just the sort of the shock that I turned on an episode of Voyager and I was watching something I was not expecting to see at all. But having, seeing it again later on, I would say I definitely tolerated it a lot better.
Yeah.
Tolerate it. I mean, one nice benefit is seeing Kate Mulgrew play somebody else on Voyager.
Yep. Yeah, I agree. I remember being pretty mediocre on this. I was very fortunate at the time Voyager was airing to have a good buddy of mine that lived a couple blocks away. And I would go to his house and we would watch Voyager together every week. And I remember being middle of the road on this, and I'm still middle of the road. My opinion of this episode hasn't evolved at all, but I'm a huge Janeway fan, just like Shar is. So I did enjoy seeing Kate Mulgrew play a different character than the Janeway. So I'm a huge fan of pretty much anything Voyager. So
hey,
maybe I'm a Voyager apologist.
Yeah,
like you were.
You and me both, buddy.
Do you think that Red from Orange is the New Black is also one of Janeway's ancestors?
Entirely possible. That's a retcon I could get behind.
All right, Jeff, how about you? What's your number 4 pick?
All right. 5 words. Even Starfleet Academy had bullies. Hashtag, the writer bit off more than the budget could chew. TOS Season 1, Episode 17, Shore Leave.
Wow.
Oh.
I remember, and I grew up watching TOS in the syndication days, dating myself, but I remember disliking this episode when I was a kid. It seemed really cheesy to me, even as a little boy, and the fantasy elements just didn't work for me. The guy in the white rabbit suit just took me right out of Star Trek. I just didn't work. I couldn't get into it. But later on, when we started doing the Tricorder transmissions, our original mission was to watch every TOS episode, record a commentary track for each one, and look for essential moments, be there character moments, Star Trek first, introductions of aliens, backstory moments, all that kind of stuff. That's when I started to really appreciate what was actually going on in this episode. And, we got the first major character death in Star Trek. McCoy dies in this episode. Of course, it's resolved really quickly. He's not dead for long, but they did kill off a major character in this episode. Some fantastic on-location shooting here with the classic Vasquez rocks that made an appearance in many TOS episodes. It was a staple. Some great backstory moments about Kirk and his time at the Academy with his goofy rival Finnegan. And this is a truly great example of a TOS episode to me. And it's grown on me a lot over the years. And I've appreciated it so much more now than I did when I originally watched it as a young kid. So I guess age really has influenced a lot of these choices.
It's funny because I've always loved this episode, even from the beginning. But I get it because there's a lot of people that don't like it, think it's just too cheesy. How about you guys, Shar, Adam?
Yeah, I think I'm in the cheesy end of things. I'm not a big fan of this one. I'll watch it if I have to, but I don't necessarily get excited if it's next on my Netflix queue and I'm thinking, oh, Shore Leave. Heck yeah, man.
That's what I do. I love it. How about you, Adam?
This is one of my top 10 TOS episodes, and it always has been. I have loved it from the very beginning.
Yeah, it's more like me.
Yeah, my first experience of it was weird, actually. When I was growing up, you couldn't really find Star Trek TOS that easily. And so I read this as a story in a James Blish novelization book.
Oh, yeah, the novel. Nice.
And that's how I first experienced it and I loved it then, and maybe that made me a little more forgiving when the show came along, and certainly had a very cheesy bunny suit in it.
That's
I think it works much better as a novel, honestly. I think that if they were to reboot this episode today and shoot it with modern technology, it would be a lot better. I just think that the ambition of this episode was just too much for the budget and for the capabilities of the studio at the time to pull it off.
I'll say I think everything worked except for the White Rabbit. I thought it was pretty well done. So okay, let's move on. Right. We're gonna move on to this. Oh no, I still have my pick.
You have to do it.
We're going to close out round 4 with my pick. It is, this is, okay, I'll start with my 5-word and a hashtag. 5 episodes and Trip's pregnant? Hashtag, but the aliens feel very alien. And the episode, of course, is Unexpected, Season 1 from Enterprise. So I'll just start off by saying that the timing is basically my 5 words and a hashtag. The timing of the episode is terrible. It really, I can't believe they're 5 episodes in and it feels like they're running out of ideas already. So that was bad. And then there's some major tone issues here where it's like, I think the crew's taking it way too lightly that a member of the crew has an alien growing inside of it. That just doesn't seem like they would be making jokes. But having said all that, I have grown to love this episode, or at least grown to find it super watchable, because the Cerulean aliens are super interesting to me. I think their ship's really well done. I love the decompression chamber when they have to go back and forth. I love that they're hiding in the plasma exhaust of Enterprise and also the Klingon ship. So I just think when I've gone back and rewatched this, I find it really very rewatchable, and I actually kind of like this episode now. So I've grown to love it. There you go. Unexpected. What do you guys think?
Wow. I love the idea of this episode. Like, just if you read the log line, Trip gets pregnant. I mean, basically, for one thing, a male getting pregnant, but also with an alien baby, that is an interesting idea. However, the tone of it really takes me out of it. I do think that, like you said, it's a little too light. They're cracking jokes. Not to mention, he was not fully aware of what was going on and complicit in this. And then the aliens are just like, oh, you got pregnant, huh? Well, have fun with that.
Yeah, that tone doesn't really work. I like Connor.
It's a lousy attitude, yeah. So they could have taken this idea and really made something very cool about it and said a lot of amazing things about it, but they chose not to.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah, I maybe like you, I would grow to love this one, but I watched it one time in October or November 2001, and I never saw it again. I skip it.
Yeah, I understand. I mean, it's definitely too early for a Trip is Pregnant episode, but Connor Chenier's performance is really good. Jeff, any unexpected comments before we move on?
Great pick. It's been an episode that I've liked the entire time. I never disliked it. So,
that's interesting. Okay.
Yeah. I'm a weird guy as far as Trek is concerned. So maybe the rest of my picks will help to illustrate that a little bit more.
All right. Copy that. All right. So let's move on to the soup round, our round 3. What is Adam's number 3 pick?
Okay. I'll tell you in a second, but first I've just got to know, what is the soup round?
Oh, so the soup round, you were there for the soup round, Adam. It was during it was for the top 5 Trek food moments.
Yeah, the food episode.
In round 3, round 3, we both chose soup, and I thought that was hilariously.
I've been racking my brain all this time. Every time I listen to your show to find out what
you were one of the originators.
I said at the moment, and you were there for that. You were in the room with us.
I was in the room.
I said at that moment, round 3 from here on out is going to be the soup round, and people can just figure it out. So here we are in the soup round, round 3.
Okay.
Adam, what's your pick?
Okay, well, my 5 words and a hashtag are familiar dilemma in the void. Hashtag time to take out the garbage.
Oh.
It's Star Trek Voyager.
Really?
Yep, Star Trek Voyager, Season 5, Episode 1, Night.
The freighter is moving to combat the aliens.
They're trying to distract the Malon and give us the upper hand.
10 seconds! The freighter's shields are weakening.
Target their cargo hold. Time to take out the garbage.
This one I will completely chalk up to where I was at the time. You may not know this about me, but I was born on the farming colony of Galt. And when I was old enough, I left and went to the academy. And my world broadened a lot at the academy, so to speak. And before that, I had been, had just nothing but time on my hands, and I stayed home and watched Star Trek obsessively. But, I started to have other things going on in my life. And that change happened to coincide with the 5th season of Voyager and the 7th season of DS9. So I wasn't going to stop watching Star Trek completely. So I had my dad at home videotaping them for me. And I would go home every month or so, and I would just watch them in a binge. And it wasn't really the greatest situation because Deep Space Nine was going into its last year. It was firing on all cylinders. And for me, at that time, Voyager was just something that I got through so I could get to the next episode of Deep Space Nine. So my feelings about Voyager were that it had been really strong in season 3 and 4, and then it had just gotten bad really quickly. And a few years ago, I decided to do a rewatch, and I started with season 5 because I knew I didn't know it that well. And I watched Night, and I was just blown away by it. It is such a good episode. And I was kind of going with some trepidation into my rewatch, and I was so impressed. I was just like, wow, this is going to be a lot of fun. And, it's on this list. I picked Night, but it could easily be all of Voyager season 5, going on to episodes like Drone and Extreme Risk and Counterpoint and Bliss and Course Oblivion and Relativity. I mean, I just loved all of those episodes, and I had completely overlooked the entire year of the show at the time. And it all started with Night.
That's interesting. And I'll say really quickly that I get this pick because when I remember when Night was the season opener, and it was like, I remember just thinking, wow, that was really dark and kind of depressing. I didn't really like that episode, even though I kind of liked it. So I never didn't like it, but now I love it. And it wasn't on my list enough because I didn't dislike it enough, but it's all-time classic as far as
I think at the time I looked at a lot of the things they were doing as being kind of retcons. Like, I didn't really see that Janeway had been, guilty enough that she would feel, depressed. But now I just think that.
Yeah, I think it fits. How about you, Shark? Because your Voyager background. What's your take on Night?
I like Night. I wish we would have had a little more context of this episode, but the episode does try to display that with this weird void, that this sort of lent itself to Janeway's descent into depression. She has been carrying all this guilt all this time, and it just kind of finally boiled over for her. And it was really interesting to see that. We don't really get to see captains break down that much. The closest thing I can think of maybe is when Picard goes back home and he has to deal with his trauma after being assimilated by the Borg. Janeway has to deal with her situation, what has been done. And she blames herself for all of it. That's too much for anybody. The only thing I don't like about Night is, of course, in 45 minutes, you're trying to cure depression. No, absolutely not. That's not how it works. But for episodic TV, it does an all right job.
Yep. They did a little bit better job with that with B'Elanna Torres over a few episodes.
Agreed.
So, Jeff, any quick takes on Night?
I don't want to get too personal here on Trek Ranks, but as someone who has dealt with depression for most of his life, that this episode resonated with me, and that's pretty much all. I'll leave it at that.
A lot of people say that and feel that way.
I could totally relate with Janeway. I internalize a lot of things and take a lot of things on myself, so I totally get it. This episode worked for me and probably always will.
That's cool. I actually thought it might be an outlier that might be on the list. All right, Sharp, what's your number 3 pick?
My 5 words are: the Decker Unit saves humanity.
Nice.
# join with V'ger. Star Trek, the motion picture.
Oh my God.
I want to applaud. This is awesome.
This had to make somebody's list,
Wonderful
right?
choice.
So, a little bit of backstory. For my 10th birthday, I got a little bit of birthday money, went out to Target and got Star Trek, the motion picture with my own money. put it in, had not watched it before. I just got it because it was Star Trek. And I was so disappointed.
I can't even imagine how disappointed you must have.
Oh my gosh. I mean, it moves so slow. I can't appreciate the 1970s special effects here. I'm not getting like the core of the story at all. I felt like it was the worst waste of money I had ever made at that point in my life. But despite its flaws, yes, it does move way too slow. Yes, it is basically the special effects jamboree. At its heart, it is the most Roddenberry-esque movie of them all. So, over time, and especially with the director's cut, which I think does make it a little better, I have really grown to appreciate that.
Spectacular. I have nothing to add. That is so awesome.
Yes. This could have been on my list as well. And I think part of the problem with it was not just the director's cut, but for a long time, the only version you could get on video was this longer TV edit that had added 20 minutes to it. And that is not a movie that needs 20 minutes added to it.
More Star Trek is always better. Stop that, Adam.
I feel like this is a less is more situation. But it's probably as close to pure Gene Roddenberry as it can possibly get. I love it now. For me, it was the experience of seeing it in the movie theater that completely turned me around on it.
Jeff, how about you?
Man, I saw this in the theater when it came out.
Yep.
Albeit I was too young to appreciate it at the time, but my opinion on this movie has never evolved. It's definitely still a bottom of the barrel Trek film for me. I have a very, very hard time finding anything super positive about this film.
That's funny. I don't think I knew that.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yeah, this is always near the bottom of my barrel of Trek movies. Not many rank lower than this one. As a guy who grew up on TOS is my wheelhouse. It's my favorite series of all time, and it just never worked for me. And I hate to say negative things about Trek, so I'll just forego any further comments on it. But I'm glad that other people have evolved their opinions on this movie and like it more than I do. So kudos to both of you guys, all three of you, rather, for liking it.
I loved it when it came out, and I love it now, and I love this picture. All right.
Side note, this is my fiance's favorite Star Trek movie.
Yes, there you go.
Oh my God.
Wow. It's a great movie.
Congratulations, by the way.
Thank you.
All right, Jeff, how about you? What's your number 3 pick?
All right. So my 5 words: can never have enough Badmirals. # Battle for the Fountain of Youth again. I've picked a Trek film for this one.
Yes.
Star Trek Insurrection.
All right.
Oh, yeah.
I remember, I've seen every Trek film in the theater as it was released, and I remember walking out of the theater feeling like I just sat through a 90-minute TNG episode and feeling really unimpressed. I felt like it was kind of a phoned-in film. It didn't feel like cinematic Trek to me, especially after the epic, incredible film that First Contact was, which is my number 2 Trek film of all time. My expectations were super high, and I was very, very, very let down. But, years later, I remember I picked up the DVD. It was on sale, and I picked it up just to have it in my Trek collection as a completist. And, I sat down to rewatch it, and I started to realize as I rewatched it, there were elements of this film that kind of harken back to the reasons why I love televised Trek so much, as opposed to, motion picture Trek. And it gave me a lot of things to think about. The choice between duty and doing what's morally right, I thought really felt Trek to me.
We are betraying the principles upon which the Federation was founded. It's an attack upon its very soul. And it will destroy the Baku. Just as cultures have been destroyed in every other forced relocation throughout history.
Jean-Luc, we're only moving 600 people.
How many people does it take, Admiral, before it becomes wrong? 1,000? 50,000? 1,000,000? How many people does it take, Admiral?
the Fountain of Youth conundrum, which we've seen done on Trek several times before this movie. A Badmiral reminding us that Starfleet isn't perfect, and there are some issues there. It's always nice to see personal parts of our favorite characters. Picard's romance angle in this, the moment with Geordi seeing the sunrise with his own eyes for the first time, it gets me misty every time. It's just so touching. There's just a lot of great little moments in this film, and also I can't let an opportunity go by to mention how great the score for this film is.
So good.
It's absolutely gorgeous. I mean, Goldsmith killed it. I mean, in hindsight, 20 years, almost 20 years removed from this film coming out, I'm so glad that I have a deeper affinity for this now than I did. And I truly appreciate it for what it is. And, it doesn't rank super high on my Trek film list, but I still really absolutely love this movie.
So I love this because pretty sure this is the first time Insurrection has been mentioned on Trek Ranks, which gives me a chance to rant briefly that I love this movie. I have from the very beginning, because all I've ever wanted from the movies is a great 2-hour episode. I want Star Trek television. I want the movies to replicate the TV show. They rarely do because they have to be bigger and grander and save the Earth. So Insurrection for me, I loved it when it came out because it's just an awesome 2-hour TNG episode that could have fit in any season with a bigger budget. So I love it. How about you guys? Shar, what do you think?
This is not my favorite. I need to go back and revisit it, though, just because it's been a long time. I do agree that the score is top-notch. Jerry Goldsmith, such a master of his craft. Maybe going back, I'll get more out of it than I have. I don't know how long it's been since I've last watched it, but let's just say I've watched it several times and not gotten a whole lot out of it. So you never know, though. Maybe it'll change this time, and maybe it won't, So I'll have to do that and just see what happens.
I sort of agree with Jim on this one. I never disliked it, nor is it my favorite one, but, there are worse things to be than a long TNG episode with a big budget.
Okay, let's close out the soup round. You guys are all sitting down. Here's my pick. So let me get my Cisco impersonation ready here. I'm gonna sing. Ala Moraine, if you can see, hashtag Ala Moraine, you'll come with me. Yes, it is Move Along Home from Deep Space Nine.
Nice.
That was my Cisco singing impersonation. And I'm like everyone when they first saw this episode, it was just more kind of just a straight up WTF, where it's like, what is going on? I don't think I hated it, but I think I was just kind of embarrassed for the actors in the show, and maybe even for Star Trek. It was really just too silly and odd, and actually it's actually very poorly acted across the board, and it just didn't work. But I gotta say, guess what? Through the years, I've learned to embrace the kitsch, and I have grown to love it.
Alma Rain, count to 4.
Alma Rain, count to 4. Alma Rain, then 3 more. Alma Rain, if you can see. Alma Rain, you'll come with me. Come on, just say the rhyme.
Alma Rain, then 3 more. Alma Rain, if you can see. Alma Rain, you'll come with me. Alma Rain,
Alma Rain, count to 4. Alma Rain, then 3 more.
Alma Rain, then 3 more. Alma Rain, if you can see. Alma Rain, you'll come with me.
Alma Rain, you'll come with me.
I don't know. I just think it's awesome. It's just the funny thing about it is I think the ending, when I watched it the first time, the ending where they're in the caves is kind of like, okay, now that at least they're in like the cave, this is good. Now I hate that part. I just want to see all the goofy hopscotch and crazy Chula and third Shap and all that stuff. So anyway, I love this episode. I can't wait to hear what you guys think about it.
My favorite thing about this episode is the look on Kira's face the entire time. because the Starfleet officers are maybe like a bit used to weird stuff like this happening, but 4 months before this, she was a terrorist who was hiding out in the hills in Bronson Canyon, and now she's part of this space station crew working with these Starfleet officers and having these bizarre adventures happening to her.
Your favorite part's not when Dr. Bashir wakes up screaming, kind of rolling up against the wall. How about you, Star?
I may not quite remember that.
This is one that I've not watched in a very long time. It's been 20-something years. When I did watch it when it first aired, I thought, wow, that happened. And I really wanted to move on pretty quickly. I thought it was absurd. I thought it was a little bit embarrassing.
Yep.
Just like, wow, they're really doing this as an episode for all posterity, as a part of Star Trek. Okay, then. That's about all I have to say. I need to go back and watch it. I do agree, though. Kira's reaction, though, that did stick with me. That makes this episode worthwhile. That is worth the watching.
I think my credibility is taking a hit with this pick, Jeff. What's your take?
I can't save your credibility, man. I'm with Char. I've got to go back and watch this again. It's been a long time since I've seen it, and I didn't dislike it, but I didn't put it high on my list, so I'm middle of the road on that. I'm gonna have to get.
I'll just end by saying what I think. The thing that I've grown to love about it over the years is that it just feels like a wacky third season TOS episode, and that just feels right. There's something.
It kind of does
something good about that.
Yeah.
So, all right, second round. Here we are, round 2 picks. Adam, what's your number 2 pick?
Okay, well, my 5 words and a half. Actually, I'm going to tell you my 5 words, and I'll tell you my hashtag at the end. But 5 words are: Inspector Javert seeks Jean Valjean. It's Star Trek Deep Space Nine, Season 5, Episode 13, For the Uniform.
Wow.
Yes. So I really didn't like this episode. When I was back living on the farming colony of Galt, I used to have a GeoCities website where I wrote reviews of Star Trek episodes that no one ever read. And I have a partial backup of some of these reviews, and I dug out my review for this. And here's what I wrote at the time in 1997. I wrote,
wow.
In my mind, it weakens Sisko's character a large extent. I find myself siding with Eddington, even though I feel like I shouldn't be. I appreciate sudden character twists like this one, but it's completely unsupported. I don't care if Sisko makes a deal with the devil. In fact, I rather like the idea. But in the end, it appears the entire crew is behind him. Even Dax congratulates him at the end. In short, the downright hate on Sisko's part is never dealt with, neither by the writers nor Sisko himself. The story of Sisko crossing the line could be a good one, but the lack of conscience pangs is a disturbing insight into Sisko's true character, which I don't think the writers intended. So that's what I felt at the time. And the interesting thing is, if you had asked me if I agreed with this review 6 weeks ago, I would have told you, yes, 100% I agree with it.
Wow. So what happened? What's going on? This is an all-time great episode. I think this is like my number 3 DS9 episode. It's really high for me.
So what happened in the interim was Star Trek Discovery. I was on Twitter talking about Discovery, and I am a big Captain Lorca fan. I think he's a fascinating character. I don't think he's as evil as everyone says. And I really enjoy, I think he just has a very different perspective on a lot of things that are sacrosanct in Star Trek. One of them being that good and evil are absolute, that, absolutes, and you always have to do what's good. And I think Captain Lorca doesn't agree with that. And I was saying, this is completely new for Star Trek. It's never been done. And Nicholas Whaley, who you might have seen on Twitter, he's around discussing Star Trek. He came along and he said, hey, what about For the Uniform? And I was completely stymied because, this absolutely went right down that road. And I hated it for it. And here I was defending Lorca. So I rewatched it, and I have to say my opinion has evolved a lot since 1997. I think, Deep Space Nine is really more episodic than it's sometimes described as being. And I think I may have been right that perhaps this could have been dealt with a little bit better. One thing that was not mentioned, I think, in order to keep the episode episodic, was that Eddington had really made things personal when he sort of co-opted Cassidy Yates and then manipulated Sisko and manipulated Sisko's personal feelings for her. Even Ducat knows that you don't mess with Sisko's family. But Eddington was willing to cross that line. And so it makes perfect sense that Sisko is so angry at him and is pursuing him so intently. And then I think Sisko really pulls a Lorca move, which is he absolutely has a justification for everything that he's doing. You know, Eddington has started attacking Federation starships. This is a big deal. And, you know, maybe that would be a reason which is palatable to Starfleet Command, but that's not his real reason. And, you know, like Lorca, there's the justification and then there's the real reason that he's doing things.
The Maquis are scrambling their transport ships. They're starting to evacuate.
Do you realize what you've done?
I've only just begun. I'm going to eliminate every Maquis colony in the DMZ.
You're talking about turning hundreds of thousands of people into homeless refugees.
That's right. When you attacked the Malinche, you proved one thing, that the Maquis have become an intolerable threat to the security of the Federation, and I am going to eliminate that threat.
But think about those people you saw in the caves. Huddled and starving, they didn't attack the Malinche.
You should have thought about that before you attacked a Federation starship. Helm! Lay in a course for Tracken 2, Warp 6. Commander, prepare 2 more torpedoes.
Engine room, break.
Set course 050
Unlock safeties on torpedoes 3 and 4.
Can't you see what's happening to you? You're going against everything you claim to believe in. And for what? To satisfy a personal vendetta?
You betrayed your uniform!
And you're betraying yours, right now! The sad part is you don't even realize it. I feel sorry for you, Captain. This obsession with me, look what it's cost you.
Major, shut that thing off! Commander Worf, prepare to launch torpedoes!
Wait! If you call off your attack, I'll turn over all our biogenic weapons.
Not enough!
All right, Javert. I'll give you what you want. Me.
I like that tie into Discovery.
So my hashtag for it is...
Oh, yeah.
My hashtag is context is for kings.
Oh, yeah. There you go.
Nice.
Which is my favorite Discovery episode, by the way. All right.
What?
Oh, I love it.
That
episode... We can't go down the rabbit hole. Don't go down the Discovery rabbit hole.
I almost clicked the hang up button.
That's a later episode. There's no wrong answers. There's all the Discovery are great. So, I mean, I love For the Uniform. I think it's an all-time classic. It's number 4 on my list. How about you, Shar? What's your take?
I like the episode too. It kept me guessing first time around. I was not sure what was going to happen. I love that it makes you question the ethics of what is right and what is wrong. And I love this comparison to Lorca on Discovery. That makes such a good point. Yes. I kind of, now that we're almost at the mid-season break, I think once we're done with episode 9, I think I might go back and watch this episode and then see like if it affects my opinion of Discovery or vice versa. If Discovery does that to this episode,
and I think Discovery's doing it better, but DS9 did it first.
Yeah, it's awesome.
There you go.
Nice.
All right. Shar, you're up. Your second pick of the episodes you grew to love. What do you got?
All right. So the 5-word summary on this one is "Don't hug me, I'm scared." It's a YouTube series, but it made me think of this episode, and the hashtag is slugs. It's Enterprise's fight or flight.
Oh, I like this pick. I could see somebody not liking this.
Yeah, so when Enterprise first aired, I was excited. New series, right? Broken Bow was fantastic. And then there's this episode. And Sato's fear and reluctance initially came across to me as whiny and off-putting. I did not like her. But you have to put it in context, which I did not do. You kind of have to understand where she's coming from. I mean, space is not this familiar final frontier as we kind of know it in Star Trek. And most of the crews that we watched have been comfortable being in space, even if they are in the unknown. So this is different. And now she has the situation thrust onto her. Even if she wants to be there, she has to face a lot of things I think she did not expect and doesn't know how to handle emotionally. But what she does is really valuable. She bravely faces her fears. She starts to see that she's capable of much more than she ever realized. And What a great lesson for all of us.
Such a great pick. I love this episode from the beginning, but I totally can see that and that reaction. That's amazing.
Yeah.
Adam, any thoughts?
I remember it being a little bit of a letdown after Broken Bow too, but I can't say I disliked it very strongly. It's a solid episode.
Jeff, any comments?
Well, I'm going to say, Char, you've inspired me. I have never been a big fan of Enterprise 1 and seasons 1 and 2, and now I really need to go back and do an earnest rewatch. And,
nice.
and be more objective, and because I've rewatched everything in the past, and I've come to love episodes that I didn't like before, as we're talking about now, and I really need to go back and watch seasons 1 and 2 of Enterprise again. So I'm a big fan of seasons 3 and 4.
So not to spoil our regeneration cycle recap, but we have three. We already have 3 Enterprise picks from seasons 1 and 2. It's pretty amazing. So I love that pick, and I love that episode. All right, Jeff, what's your number 2 pick?
All right, so this one, I almost made my number 1, but I had to knock it down a notch. But so my 5 words: my favorite Trek villains neutered. # I'm laughing at Q's superior intellect. As much as it pains me to say it now, looking back on it, Voyager Season 3, Episode 26, and Voyager Season 4, Episode 1, Scorpion 1 and 2. Man, let me tell you, this pissed me off when I first saw it. I have always been a huge Borg fan for years, and I initially felt like this arc was neutering one of my favorite and best villainous races in Star Trek. Thinking back to the introduction of the Borg, and Q sold the introduction of the Borg with this quote. Q said, "You can't outrun them. You can't destroy them. If you damage them, the essence of what they are remains. They regenerate and keep coming. Eventually, you will weaken. Your reserves will be gone. They are relentless. They couldn't be reasoned with. They couldn't be negotiated with. Their technology was superior. You got anywhere near one of them, and you kiss your humanity goodbye. Welcome to a life that's the antithesis of everything that you know. The Borg were freaking terrifying. And now they're forging an alliance with Janeway and the humans, right? A race that they have seen as inferior for all the time we've known them. Come on, man."
So what made you come around?
All right. So I guess I started to soften on this. I started to come to realize that over the rest of Voyager and Enterprise in one episode, and of course First Contact, which came before it, the Borg were just getting pantsed by our favorite captains over and over and over again. Even Archer sent them packing, right? So I mean, eventually I kind of gave up my hardline Borg love. And this arc, I gave the arc another chance. And, you know, I love the idea of fluidic space, the alien race that was immune to assimilation. And I guess, I mean, I suppose there had to be something that the Borg would run into eventually, right? There had to be something they couldn't overcome. So I guess there's so many solid Janeway moments in this arc, and I'm a huge Janeway fan, so that softened me even more too. You got an introduction of a major new character in Voyager, and I love the Doctor, and he gets a great hero moment in figuring out how to cure Harry Kim and figure out how to get the nanoprobes to work. So I've just come around on the arc over time. Again, I've softened in my old age. I've come to accept more in Star Trek and kind of resign some of my old convictions. But I'm glad that I came around on this because it is a really good arc. Species 8472 is fascinating. It's a great example of early CG. And there's so many great things to like in this. So I've loved to eat crow on these 2 episodes.
I mean, I would just want to point out that the Borg got pantsed literally every episode after Q Who. So in Best of Both Worlds, Iborg all the way through. So
yeah, but you know what? Even Best of Both Worlds was very tense.
I know, but they still put him to sleep.
Very tense. One of the best cliffhangers in Trek ever.
And they put him to sleep at the end. So I mean, I'm just saying,
but that was a great solution.
But this is all part.
But it was a great solution, though, Chip. They couldn't destroy them. They had to figure out a way to defeat them without blowing them up. And it's great.
You know what else is a great solution? Forging a tentative alliance, because now their universe has changed because they're being threatened by species 8472. Anyway, Scorpion is awesome. It's like definitely top 5 all time. Char, what do you think? What's your take?
Oh yeah, Scorpion is way up there for me. I love this 2-parter. This for me in my day, this was almost Best of Both Worlds-ish. That summer was painful to wait.
Me too. I agree with you.
I love it.
So what you were saying, Jeff, about the Borg being, that supreme nemesis and Voyager neutering them, I agree. They did neuter the Borg, but not here. They are still a huge threat. And to top it all off, you've got an even bigger threat of another species that can defeat the Borg. Holy I don't know if you can cuss on this podcast, so I refrained.
Perfectly said.
So I love it for that. I love the Janeway moments. I love it when Janeway and Chakotay go back and forth. It's explosive chemistry going on there. So much good stuff.
Love it.
I love this one. Love it, love it, love it.
Adam.
I've only come to appreciate that now, though, by the way. At the time, I was in a different mindset.
I'm so happy that you've grown to love Scorpion. Adam, what's your quick take?
Well, I don't have anything to add to that full-throated defense of the episode. I just want to point out, actually, that as far back as Q-Who, Guinan was saying that it would be possible for the Federation to have a relationship with the Borg on equal footing eventually. So
I love it. I love it. Okay, but
good point.
The moral of the story is that Jeff has come around and realized the error of his ways, because Scorpion is awesome. Okay, so let's get back. We got more Voyager here. My number 2 pick. My 5 words in a hashtag. So incredibly weird, it might hashtag actually be good. It is the Thaw from season 2.
Nice.
And I gotta say, I've never been a big fan of Trek's like surreal episodes, or the ones they're not my favorites compared to the other storytelling mechanisms in Trek. So when this came out, it was just too annoying. The clowns are annoying. The sets are loud and annoying. And I always say, when characters are annoying, I'm not going to like an episode. If the actors are hitting their mark too well, I'm probably not going to want to watch it. So having said that, I've come full circle on it. I've grown to love it. It's totally a menacing and terrifying and legitimately scary episode of Trek. When they kill that character who's been stuck in the program for however long, they chop his head off, and it is legitimately upsetting. So I think this episode's it's now one that I really, really enjoy watching, and I find it and they totally earn it at the end with Janeway when she kind of beats or tricks fear and is just turning out the lights. It's really well done. I love it. I think Adam, this was was this one of your Voyager high concept episodes?
No, it wasn't. But you guys talked about it in the Gory episode, and
that's right, we did just talk about it.
And that made me want to go back and watch it. I don't think I've seen this one since '96. So
and of course Michael McKean's awesome. Char, what's your take on the Thaw?
Well, if you didn't gauge from my reaction, I love this episode so much. I do think Michael McKean is fan-freaking-tastic in this episode. And I love Janeway defeating fear personified. That is just so cool. It has one of the most unique and memorable endings to any Trek episode out there. I've always liked this episode, but I know it's not a popular choice, so I'm so glad it made your list.
Really, does he get really small? Am I remembering that right?
No, she whispers to him that, and he's like afraid, and it's getting darker and darker, and then he just says "drat" and a scream.
Well, not quite. You're missing the best part, because she says, like all fear, you eventually vanish, and he says, "I'm afraid," and she says, "I know," and then it fades to black.
Doesn't he say "drat" though? Isn't like the last word "drat"?
At the very, very end, after it's already black. Yes.
So good. We're going to play this audio clip right now.
What will become of us? Of me?
Like all fear, you eventually vanish.
I'm afraid.
I know.
Dread.
That's an amazing soundbite. All right, let's move on to round one. Adam, what's your number one Trek episode that you grew to love?
Okay, this is going to get controversial. But my number one, this is an episode that went from being thoroughly mediocre, in my opinion, to being one of my very favorite, probably top 50 of all of the series combined episodes.
This is not going to be controversial because you love it now. So let's hear it.
I absolutely love it now. 5 words are: free spirits gotta stay weird. # the higher, the fewer.
Yes. This is why we're doing the episodes.
It's Star Trek TNG Season 5, Episode 20, Cost of Living. So, like, I felt the same way for a long time that a lot of people felt about this episode. And what finally turned me around, I watched it, having gotten a little bit older, having become an adult. And it seems at first that it's just another Lwaxana Troi does wacky Lwaxana Troi stuff episode. And if that's all it were, and that's what a lot of people think it is, if that's all it were, it would just be Manhunt and it would not be on this list. There's a moment halfway through the show that is so incredible to me. And it's Lwaxana Troi is trying on the wedding dress that she has to wear for her marriage to a man that she's never met. And it's a hideous dress, and Majel is quite frankly rocking it with her dyed white hair. And Alexander is asking her, if she's getting married for love. And she just says, "I'm alone, Alex." And her voice cracks. And it is the most incredible moment, because suddenly you see that this woman that we have known is irrepressible, just an individual who cannot be contained, is so afraid of being alone and what other people will think of the actual her that she is willing to censor everything about herself and marry this man. And in the midst of this crisis that she's going through, she sees a little boy who is going through a similar crisis. And even though she doesn't have the strength to help herself, her first instinct is to help him get through exactly the same problem. And now my voice is breaking. I think that alone would warrant it being on this list.
People get married because they want to spend their lives with someone.
Their whole life?
Huh.
They must have to like that person a lot.
Well, if you're young and lucky, it'll be someone you like a lot, yes. And if you're older...
Are you very old?
I'm alone, Alex. And when you do get older and can no longer pick and choose from whatever may come your way, then you do what we call compromise. Keeps you from being afraid.
I think that Cost of Living has even another level on it. Gene Roddenberry died on October 24th.
I get it.
1991. This episode came out on April the 20th of the following year, 1992. Less than 6 months later. So you know that basically as soon as he died, Star Trek The Next Generation wrote an episode heavily featuring Majel, probably featuring her more centrally than any episode up to that point had for Luoxana Troy. And the message of that episode was, stay weird, we're your family. And to me, when she comes in at the end to the wedding and she's come naked in order to shock her spouse, in order to show him who she really is and let him make a decision about whether he wants to marry her or not. The way that the crew of the Enterprise, just every single one of them, and she's not high on their list, but every single one of them is just smiling, and every single one of them, you can see they want to just, pump their fists in the air to see her do this. And it's just a message of, you're not alone. You'll never be alone. You have a family in Star Trek. And just to think of Star Trek The Next Generation doing that for Majel just adds another level to this episode for me.
I never made that connection. That's amazing. And
no, me neither.
Yeah, I totally get it. That's a inspired pick. It's an easily dismissed episode for the wackiness of it, but that's amazing. Really well said, Adam. I love it.
I need to go watch this episode again with the new lens.
I mean, I know I feel the emotion in it when I watch this episode. I get, annoyed by some of the wacky stuff, but yeah, wow. It is for sure a powerful episode in that regard. So, all right, Shar, how about you? What's your number one pick that you grew to love?
My number one pick, 5-word summary is die at 65 or else, #no retirement. This is another Luoxana-centric episode, and it's TNG's Half a Life.
Oh, my.
Wow.
Incredible.
So, when this episode first aired, I didn't understand this one fully because I was a 10-year-old kid. And now that I'm older and I'm a little wiser, 65 really doesn't seem that old. So, I mean, for 45 minutes, this episode really nicely displays the issue of how we should deal with our elders. And so this alien culture, they did the very blanketed solution of taking everybody out at 65, no matter how healthy or thriving. And Luoxana points out just how absurd that can be. But it's their culture, so you have to respect it, right? But it also brings up some really important points of whether it's really better to let our elders slowly degenerate physically and mentally until they can no longer take care of themselves, might not be aware of what's going on anymore. And it opens up a discussion, and it makes you think about a topic that a lot of people don't like to face, because we don't want to think about, like our parents and our grandparents aging and dying and what do we do and all that, and things like the elder healthcare system and whatnot. A lot of people end up going to nursing homes, and how are they treated there? Is it good? Is it not? There's a lot of issues there, and this sort of opens that up.
Oscoids.
What's that?
Oscoids, a Beta Z delicacy.
Looks very interesting.
Should tried it while you were still alive. No reason to bother now. Why 60? Why not 62, 58?
A reasonable age had to be set.
But it's not reasonable. Certainly not in your case. You're as vital and healthy a man as I've ever known.
That is why I wish to say goodbye to my family and colleagues while I am this way, in full command of my faculties, knowing that they will always remember me as a strong and vigorous man.
But it makes no sense. Some of your people could still be active at 70 or 80, and others might be seriously ill at 50. How cruel of you to make them wait so long to commit suicide.
Setting a standard age for the resolution makes it uniform for everybody to ask individual families to decide when their elders are to die. That would be heartless.
I agree. Why not let everybody die when they die?
Incredible. It totally, and it's the kind of episode if you watch when you're younger, you're like, come on, let's move it. But you get older, it's like, wow, this is a really poignant, hard-hitting episode. You've summarized it so well.
It really is. And it also even brings up issues of, right to die. What if you want to die while you are still cognizant and of sound mind and judgment? I mean, there's a big case for that. And so you got to think about that too.
So all right, before we get to Jeff's pick, I'm going to say it's just so ironic that you guys had these two back to back, because I've always said that, isn't it odd that Lwaxana's in 2 episodes that are like half a season apart, and you could literally swap the names and they would work for either episode. Because either one would work really well for either episode.
I have to say, I'm always blanking out on the name of Cost of Living.
Well, I always get confused that, wait, is that Half a Life or Cost of Living? So now I'm going to be even more confused. So thanks, guys. Okay. All right, Jeff, what's your number one? What's your number one pick?
Jim, you saw this coming a mile away. Char and Adam may not have, but 5 words: the Trek Trinity back together. Hashtag, this will give it away. What does God need with a starship? Star Trek V: The Final Frontier. You knew it was coming. I did not like this movie when I saw it in a theater when it came out, and for all the familiar reasons, we've heard them all. We've talked about them before. We're all Trekkies. We've trashed this movie endlessly. No need to rehash all those criticisms of the film here. And I agree. I agree with everyone. It's not a great Trek movie, but I have come to love it for my own reasons. Over the years, the movie it's really grown on me because I've said this on Trek Ranks before. This is the only TOS film to center around the relationship between Kirk, Spock, and McCoy, which was the cornerstone of the original series. And as weak as the film is, it feels like the most like a return to the original series of any of the films that came before it. And I know that Sybok is, as the central villain, he's always felt like a weak villain, and I agree with that. He is a weak villain. The way he's portrayed in the film, he's just not effective. But I've come to love what he represents. I love the question that he poses to Star Trek fans, and I've had some really fantastic discussions on Twitter with some of our listeners about that. What would Vulcans be like if they were not servants of logic? What if Vulcans had all of their mental prowess and powers, but were as flawed as we humans are? How dangerous would Vulcans be if they were as corrupt and manipulative as the human race, right? Sybok manipulated his subjects by removing their pain and making them believe that they did it themselves. What would the snake oil salesman be like if he could reach into your mind, flip all the right switches without you knowing that he did it? That is truly insidious as a villain, and that is how dangerous Vulcans would be if they used their powers for their own means. And I think that is, if you look at Sybok in that way, he's a really, really terrifying villain. He doesn't come across that way in the film. I get it. And I know the film is hokey, and I know that the whole meeting God thing is hokey. I get it. But it's just something that has occurred to me over time and watching this movie. There's so many things that I've come to love about this movie. I'm just going to let that stand as it is. You guys can trash my views on this film. Everyone else does. I'm used to it. Go for it.
You defend it well. You always do. And the emotion of the Trinity is really,
it's
really
great.
well
I know
felt.
it's the humor in this movie too is corny.
It's corny, yeah.
I get it. But and so was TOS. TOS was corny too. Yeah. But those 3 characters together were the core of Star Trek. And they're the core of Star Trek in this movie in a way they are not in all of the other TOS.
I've always thought that this episode, or that this movie, has a lot in common with an episode that we already talked about, which is The Way to Eden. There's a lot of similarities, right down to the cult leader stealing the Enterprise. What you said about Sybok is very interesting. It kind of makes me wonder if, before Serac, if Vulcan was just full of people like Sybok, running around and doing these mind tricks to, enthrall their subjects. It's, very frightening. I never looked at it that way.
Yeah, I like that. How about you, Shar? What's your Star Trek V take?
Yeah, I can't say that I thought of Sybok in quite that manner, and that is really eye-opening. That's such a great way to, sell that story. Star Trek V, not my favorite, not at all. I do love the Kirk, Spock, and McCoy camaraderie. That's the best part of the movie by far and away. I really do appreciate that. The rest of it, could chuck, not a problem. But those moments really are worthwhile. It's not
I feel like the entire sequence in the movie that happens in the sort of that forward observation lounge with the ship's helm.
Yes. Yes.
Between Kirk, Spock, McCoy, and Sybok, that is an amazing scene.
Yeah, that's.
What if God is not out there? What if he's in here? The human heart.
Mm-hmm.
Great exchange.
That sounds like Gene Roddenberry.
Yeah,
it does.
It does. Yes.
All right, let's wrap it up with my number one pick. And we've had a lot of heart and emotion in the round one picks, and we're going to have that again here with my pick, which is my 5-word hashtag is emotional impact is very real. Hashtag RIP Bell. And that is for the young girl Bell. This is Voyager episode Real Life, the Doctor's daughter Bell. I got to tell you, when this first came out, I was 30 years old, and I just wanted to see space stuff. You know, I was at that point. I just didn't buy any of this, and I got to be honest. This is probably my least favorite episode of Trek for quite a long time. I just hated it. I just didn't get it. I didn't buy it. This is, of course, the episode where the Doctor has a holographic family.
Perfect. I'm very pleased, children, and I'm sure your father will be too.
I want to be first to say goodbye to Daddy. Jeffrey always goes first.
You were first yesterday. Now, children, little birds in their nests get along.
You're right, Mother. I'm sorry, Belle. You can go first.
No, it's really your turn. I did go first yesterday.
Here he comes.
All right, now, bright, happy faces.
The coffee was quite good this morning.
I'm so glad you like it. I replicated a new blend from Paxor 3.
I'll be home at the usual time.
Now, don't let them overwork you. You should save yourself for the important things. Others can do the busy work.
I couldn't agree more.
I hope you have a good day, Father. I'll have my homework finished by the time you get back.
I'll look forward to reviewing it, Jeffrey. And is my little angel going to get an A on her history exam today?
Of course I will, Daddy. And can we do some algebra problems when you get home?
Gladly.
And don't forget, you're going to ask some of your friends from work to have dinner with us. I'd like to meet them.
I haven't forgotten. Well, goodbye, all.
Goodbye, darling.
Man, I have grown to love this episode. For me, it just works on every level now. It's super smart. It's super mature. And even with those annoying Klingon boys making a racket, I got to say, as I said in the 5-word and the hashtag, the emotion of the impact, the death of Bell at the end is just leaves me a blubbering mess every time. I actually love this episode now. It's incredible. And it was a Jerry Taylor script, and it's just amazing. Char, I'm kind of guessing you probably loved this episode all along, right?
Yeah, I've always liked it. I don't know if I love it, but I certainly think, especially as we do get older, and that's such a theme for our lists, right? Is as we get older, we learn how to appreciate episodes differently with different perspective. This is definitely the case for this kind of episode where, especially if you were a parent, I think it really tears at your heartstrings because it makes you think, what if it was your kid? Mm-hmm. And I'm not a parent, but I can totally understand like how that would affect somebody so deeply, you know? So in that respect, that's great. It has a little bit of comedic value. For 45 minutes, it's of course very exaggerated. The only thing that I really wish would have happened that we didn't get was that we never revisited this family. He just shut it down after going through a little bit of trauma. Well, that's not real life.
That's fair. That's the nature of the...
Where was B'Elanna then?
Yeah, you could have said that about a lot of episodes of Voyager, but we know that's
of course
what the show was. So
yeah, but it was a very good idea, and it was a very cool 45 minutes. I love the idea of the Doctor having a family.
When I rewatch it, I just think they really sell the emotion really, really well. So, Adam, any takes on Real Life?
I love it. Have always loved it. Yeah, I mean, the thing about Voyager is like Twilight Zone. You shouldn't expect the next episode to have anything to do with the one that came in front of it.
That's such a great analogy.
But once you accept it as that, there's no fault to find with this episode.
I agree. I completely agree with Adam. I like this episode initially, and it's funny because I loved Voyager in its initial run, and I kind of had a falling out with it, and I don't really understand the reasons why I started to sour on it, and then the last few years in my rewatches, I've come to love it all over again. So, this is one of those episodes that I've always enjoyed, and
love it.
I really hope that I don't understand necessarily why there's a lot of Voyager disdain out there, but I think Voyager holds up so well if you sit down and rewatch it all over again, and it's so easy to appreciate.
Yeah, I think Adam just said it really well. If you think of it like the Twilight Zone, that's a great analogy. All right, let's run through some quick secondary systems picks because man, that was intense. All right, Adam, what do you got on your list? Anything quick you want to throw out?
Yeah, the sixth episode that right up to today was just about to knock Carbon Creek off of this was the Bar Association.
I get that.
Nice.
Yeah,
one.
I remembered not liking it that much at the time, but I did go back to my contemporaneous review and I found out I gave it a good review. So that's why it didn't make the list.
Interesting.
Seeing it later, I studied a bit of labor history later in life, and the Bar Association is just like a master class. It's just a textbook on what is done in strikes and what is done to break strikes. So that would be came very close to being on my list. A couple of other ones, the Cloudminders didn't really have much of an impression, and
I love that
then I saw it again and it blew me away. Crossfire on Deep Space Nine, which is the one where Odo is really mooning for Kira and she falls for Shakar. Lovelorn Odo has become more poignant to me over the years.
Yeah, I love that episode.
So a couple others, Resolutions from Voyager. I love that Janeway-Chakotay relationship. I don't think
Shar has no feelings. Shar has no feelings about that.
I don't think I didn't appreciate
whatsoever.
at the time that they kind of leave it on a like, how far did it go exactly note. Also, once
we know what they do.
Also, Once Upon a Time from Voyager, the Slaughter episode.
Yep.
And this one's for you, Jim. Author.
Oh,
nice.
All right.
Ooh.
No,
Wow.
I've not come around on that. I will say it's not a Slaughter episode. It's a Trevis episode.
Trevis.
Get it right, buddy.
Yeah, sorry.
Okay. Shar, how about you? What's on your secondary systems?
Interesting that you mentioned Once Upon a Time. That's on there. It's still not very endearing to me, but my opinion of it has grown over time. So I considered it. Also, Carpenter Street from Enterprise.
Yes.
At first, I didn't really like it. I just thought, oh, time travel again? But you know what? Revisiting it,
It's
it
so
is fun.
Yep.
Yeah, I enjoy it now a lot. I don't know why I didn't get it to begin with.
I love it. All right, I have Alter Ego from Voyager was one that that one I've gone back to and kind of gotten into, and then the main one that was closest to making my list was from DS9 was Shadow Play, where I remember the first time watching it thinking, this is just not a lot here, but I think that the little girl and Odo that kind of hits me now. Just what's with all the little girls and all their sad stories? She lost her mom in real life, but something about Shadow Play, I like that now when I watch that episode. I think it's really good. So, okay, I think that is enough of this great conversation, and it's time to activate our regeneration cycle.
Computer, activate regeneration cycle. Alcoves beta and gamma.
All right, so let's quickly recap our picks. Adam, run through your 5 picks of episodes you grew to love.
Okay, so number 5 was my Star Trek Enterprise pick, Carbon Creek. Number 4, Star Trek TOS, Spock's Brain. Number 3, Star Trek Voyager, Night. Number 2, Star Trek Deep Space Nine, For the Uniform. And number 1, Star Trek The Next Generation, Cost of Living, one of my all-time favorites.
I love it. And as you said, you picked one from every episode. How about you, Shar? Run through your 5 picks.
Okay, number 5, DS9, Past Tense. Number 4, 1159 from Voyager. Number 3, Star Trek The Motion Picture. Number 2 is Enterprise's Fight or Flight. And number 1 is TNG's Half a Life.
Fantastic. Also, all 5 represented. I love that. And Jeff, how about your breakdown?
All right, number 5, TNG Season 6, Episode 7, Rascals. Number 4, TOS Season 1, Episode 17, Shore Leave. Number 3, Star Trek Insurrection. Number 2, Voyager Season 3, Episode 26, and Season 4, Episode 1, Scorpion 1 and 2. Number 1 pick, Star Trek V, The Final Frontier.
So you had 2 from TOS and 2 from TNG and 1 from Voyager, and you also had Rascals. So you got to love that list. All right, my breakdown was The Way to Eden from TOS, Unexpected from Enterprise, Move Along Home from DS9, The Thaw from Voyager, and Real Life also from Voyager. So I had 2 Voyagers, 1 Enterprise, 1 DS9, and 1 TOS. So our overall stats, no Discovery picks, which I just love including Discovery in these.
It just hasn't been long enough, man. You can't do that.
No, of course. Not for this topic, but for gory moments.
We've not even got through a season.
But for gory moments, we had a lot of Discovery picks. All right, so it's actually really, really spread out, the stats here. So Enterprise, DS9, and TNG each had 3 picks. TOS had 5 picks. And Voyager led the way with 6 selections.
Wow.
So that is pretty cool.
So it's the most underappreciated.
Yeah, for sure. I think that's what that means.
Yeah.
When you
absolutely.
grew to love. All right, so that was awesome. But as we do every week, we have once again encountered a temporal causality loop. So before we can depart, it's time to hear from you.
The Enterprise has been caught up in a temporal causality loop, and I suspect that something similar may have happened to you.
And we didn't have any duplicates either. So that was cool for 20 picks. That's amazing. All right. So temporal causality loop. In our last episode, we had this classic topic, and I knew we'd get a ton of feedback, and we did. There's so many. It's our top 5 time travel episodes. I haven't been able to get caught up even on all the retweets that I like to do when the list comes in. So for this week's temporal causality loop, we received a lot of love for City on the Edge of Forever, Year of Hell, some of the basics. Even Star Trek 2009 and past tense got a lot of love. But I was also impressed with a number of deep cut picks, like Carpenter Street. Actually, Char got picked by at least a handful of people as their favorite time travel episode. So I love that.
Oh, wow.
So I will say, though, I was the only person to pick Stormfront. So apparently I'm the only person that likes to see space Nazis get punched in the nose. So, but here's a couple of awesome picks that came in. One list was from Thad Hate at Tyrannicus on Twitter. I love his list. He had number 5, Visionary. Number 4, Timescape. Number 3, Star Trek First Contact. Number 2, Shattered, and number 1 was yesterday's Enterprise. I love that Visionary pick. And we didn't get to First Contact in our show much, so I wanted to give First Contact a little shout-out because that is some great time travel. And I'm also going to give a shout-out to Mauricio RMC at En Realidad Nouso on Twitter, and he gave us a great list. It had 4 all-time classics: City on the Edge of Forever, All Good Things, Trials and Tribulations, and Future's End. But he was the only one to take this deep cut pick, Time Squared from TNG, which I love because I always say 2 Picards are better than 1. So that was a great pick. And then one more quick 5 words and a hashtag shout out to Trekkie Rick at Nerd Rick on Twitter for this gem. It was his number 5 pick, and it's a deep cut. It was The Sound of Her Voice, and his 5 words and a hashtag were Time Travel is the Surprise Twist, hashtag Tragic End for a New Old Friend.
Nice.
And I really like that. So single tier for what's her name? Like Lieutenant Cusack?
She's a captain, but I don't remember what her name was.
Oh, Captain. Yeah, something. All right, so with picks that good, we have easily pulled ourselves out of this week's temporal causality loop. And as always, we want to thank everyone for all the amazing responses. So keep them coming to me at TrekRanks and at Enterprise Extra so we can retweet them. And we also want to hear from you, so please put together your own list of top 5 time travel episodes or your top 5 episodes you grew to love, whatever we've done in the past. Send them over and we'll include them on the show. Call us at the Tricorder Transmissions at 609-512-5527 at 609-512-LLAP. So hopefully we'll hear from you so you can be featured on the next episode of TrekRanks. And on the next episode of TrekRanks, we have another awesome deep cut topic. So I want to get your guys' opinion on this. This was first presented to me as a joke by someone at work. And then I quickly realized this is actually an awesome topic. So our next episode is going to be our top 5 turbo lift scenes. Yes, you heard that right.
Are you going to do a sequel of your top 5 Jeffries Tube scenes?
That'll be the next one. See, there you go. But it opened it up for me. I was like, wait, what are you talking about? Then I started thinking, wait, that's actually really good. I can think of like 5 right now. So there is no topic that's too targeted or specific or detailed for TrekRanks. So we're going to do this thing. So Adam, Shar, Jeff, anything? Adam, what's the first thing that jumped into your head?
The first thing that jumped into my head is a scene which I hope is not on anyone's list because it is not top 5 anything. It's a weird, disjointed, kind of gross feeling scene. It's the scene with Kirk and Saavik in the turbo lift in Star Trek II: The Wrath of Khan.
I was going to go for that one. Damn it!
That's fantastic. Wow. Where she's leaning up against the side and looking.
What's going on in that scene?
Her non-regulation, her hairstyle is so regulation.
She makes this kind of gross comment about her hairstyle, and then McCoy gets on the turbo lift and says, "Has she changed her hair?" And Kirk says, "I haven't noticed." Pretty much confirming that his interest in it was prurient in the first place. Just and then McCoy goes, "Wonderful stuff, that Romulan ale." What? So they're drunk and they're gawking at this younger woman. Like, what is going on?
Wow. Yeah, who knows? Might be picked by somebody. Shar, how about you? Anything jumping out at you?
The first thing that came to my mind was at the very end of Blood Fever, where Tom and B'Elanna, after their shenanigans, are in the turbo lift, and B'Elanna really wants to just pretend like it never happened, and Tom is not letting that happen. And so then B'Elanna, after the doors open, says, "Careful what you wish for, Lieutenant." And then he's kind of left there dumbfounded.
So great. That is a great, great shout out. How about you, Jeff? You got another one?
You know what? I'm going to go with a moment that shocked me in Discovery, and that was Lorca getting into the turbo lift and going directly to sickbay from the turbo lift. So sickbay is its own deck now? No, I don't know. Very weird.
It's programmed. I'm the captain. Take me directly to sickbay.
It's kind of like the Wonka Vader. Right? He just makes you where the hell you want to go.
There you go.
The 23rd century. What do you want? That makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that's going to be an awesome episode. So, all right, before we wrap it up, just a huge thanks to Adam Hunault and also to Charlynn Schmiedt, 2 very awesome guests who know their Trek. Thanks, guys. That was great. Hope you guys had fun. Any final thoughts, Adam? It
had a great time. Yeah, great discussion. I loved hearing everyone's picks. I have some episodes to go watch now.
Yeah, same here. Same here. Thanks so much for having me on. This was a blast.
So much fun. Just talking deep cut Trek, and that's what this episode was. All right, so thanks again for engaging with us here on episode 15 of the TrekRanks podcast. As always, I want to close by saying I'm looking forward to standing with you again here in this place where I belong.
I'm talking about you. I'm talking about me. Long time back when the galaxy was new, man found out what he had to do.
to drink, and a long time later he found he had to think. Yes, think. I'm standing here wondering.
What?
If a man tells another man, out of my way, he piles up trouble for himself all day. But all kinds of trouble come to an end when a man tells another man, be my friend. My friend. Well, what's it going to be?
There's a mile wide emptiness between you and me.
Can't reach across it, hardly even see.
Someone ought to take a step one way or other.
Let's say goodbye, or let's say brother. 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 Hey, out there. Hey, out there. Hey, out there.
Hey, out there.
I see you.
I see you.
I see you.
I see you.
Let's get together and have some fun. I don't know how to do it, but it's got to be done.